Good evening, everybody. Oh, Jiminy Christmas. Okay, there we go. Here's hoping everybody's having a good week so far. We're just actually getting ready to get started. So you guys can sit back and relax for the next little bit. How is everybody? I hope everybody is good, especially considering that tonight we've just got a little bit of mop up, but also some recent news. So we'll take care of that in the next little bit, and as soon as I can get either Alex or Romney on here, we'll start up the pre-show. Where is... I also got to get the agenda, because we need that. There we go. Yay! Let's go ahead and get this show on the road. Now, I'm going to apologize in advance. I might actually have to leave just intermittently. My daughter's just had a little bit of a temper tantrum, and so I'm making sure she's not, wrecking the house while I am taking care of crap in here. So I might have to leave here and there in the middle of the pre-show just to make sure she's not hurting herself or trying to get into something that might hurt her. So let's see. Okay. There we go. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Everything okay?
Yeah, you can hear me, can't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
You just kind of gave that sigh of like, I've had a hard day.
No, it's been okay.
Okay. Just making sure. Like I just told the chat and the live stream, I might have to leave kind of intermittently before the podcast starts, just because, well, Aria just barely had a little bit of a temper tantrum, so I want to make sure she's not doing anything reckless, because she tends to get into that habit. But since you're here, let's actually go ahead and get the pre-show going, and that's just because so we have a few stories that didn't make the cut for this week's agenda, and one of them, one of the main reasons that it kind of made the cut was it doesn't look like there's too much information on it right now. It's speculation, and it's actually right in Alex's wheelhouse, so Alex can probably explain it better than me. But it looks like AT&T is going to, or at least right now, is aiming to buy out Crunchyroll's, I guess, parent company, Otter Media,
right?
Sometime this summer. So I'm guessing you know the details of this.
Only what we know, which is AT&T wants to potentially buy a controlling interest in Crunchyroll, so that's by buying their company.
Well, the impression I got was they didn't want a controlling interest; they wanted the controlling interest. They wanted to control it.
Possibly, yeah.
So,
let's see, the Sherman Group. So, yes, if they acquire the Sherman Group acquired majority stake in 2013. AT&T joint venture Otter Media 2014.
Yeah.
So it might be a case of, I think AT&T already does have a stake in Crunchyroll, in fact. So they might
Otter Media is not the parent company. It looks like Crunchyroll's parent company is called Elation.
Okay.
But Elation is a part of Otter Media. So there you go.
Yeah.
And AT&T is looking to purchase it. I don't, right off the top of my head, I don't know AT&T's reputation. I don't know that unlike Comcast, which, in its corporate practices kind of has strangleholds. I don't know AT&T's business practices. Is this a good or a bad thing?
Unfortunately, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, any kind of major telecom mobile company, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, they all have their sins to confess to. So it could be just a simple hey, we're just diversifying our market because AT&T's like done the whole Time Warner
Yeah.
deal and whatever, and they just want something to just have, I don't know, money and whatever, something to add a streaming platform to get people to watch on AT&T mobile or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't really say. I think we're all just kind of hoping it's just a company that wants to buy another company and business will continue as usual.
Yeah, I mean, buyouts and stuff like offers to buy out and buyouts like this happen quite a while or quite frequently right now, especially with a bunch of the bigger companies trying to acquire the littler companies to maintain their stranglehold, maintain their monopoly, or at least their share of the monopoly on the media. And AT&T is no different. But the only thing that I can't state on the matter is like with Comcast, I know how they handle things. Okay, they've got a track record. AT&T, I don't know that track record. I'm sure there is one, but I'm not completely aware that they're not usually in the markets that I'm watching. I think like we were able to watch AT&T for a little bit when they had the stranglehold on the iPhone, but because the mobile gaming kind of surge happened on the iPhone initially, and then Android came into play. So I knew that, but I haven't known their motivations since then. And I mean, we actually had a bunch of business stuff happen over the last couple of weeks that we just weren't able to get to. And I'm just going to kind of lump it in here. So AT&T is basically making a bid to buy out Crunchyroll. The Comcast Fox. Is it Comcast that was making the offer? That was the second person to offer?
Yeah, Comcast.
So originally it was Fox and Disney. Disney was looking to buy Fox. And then eventually Comcast made an offer. We've had counter offers. And there's actually rumors right now that the Fox offer, which I believe was like $65 million, it almost feels like you have to do the Austin Powers thing with money like that. $1 million. And the rumor is that Fox is looking to accept Disney's offer, not Comcast's. So there you go. We had that. And actually in the streaming market, we actually had some positive news for an unlikely competitor in the streaming market, as Prime Video actually is starting to gain some momentum and is, I don't want to, with the numbers the way they are right now, I'm not going to say that they're a competitor to Netflix yet, or to Crunchyroll, or to any of the other streaming services, but they've had a bit of a surge. And I think, in all honesty, it's because people started to realize that, yeah, Prime Video's there. They really didn't know that right off the bat. So that was actually kind of an interesting thing. But Alex, what's your take on the Fox, Disney, Comcast debacle, and the fact that Prime Video actually is something now?
Well, when it comes to the whole buyout, it's okay there, Romney.
Yeah, that was just my light and my phone falling off at the same time.
Okay.
Wow, you clambered so fast, I thought it was a spilled drink. Okay.
So
those are just my reflexes.
Yeah, when it comes to the buyout, it's like, okay, who's going to be the lesser of two evils to get this company? I guess Disney might be that for a bit. Amazon Prime, well, assuming their Lord of the Rings reboot doesn't completely tank the service because of how expensive that's growing, we'll have to see. Maybe they can become a pretty decent, viable platforming for online streaming and original content.
It's actually kind of cool to see what Prime Video has kind of done, because their niche is not what I mean, for crying out loud, you could say Crunchyroll has its niche in anime and is it multicasting? No, simulcasting. Simulcasting. So like that's its niche. Netflix is in its original series as well as in more recent products. So like they actually will get stuff that's more recent. They have a couple of old TV series, but that initiative is just kind of tanked out. Prime Video's niche, at least what they're trying to do with it, is just retro content. Like they have a bunch of old 80s movies, old 90s movies, old 90s series that haven't been acquired by either Hulu or Netflix. And I would actually say if there's a person who holds all the stuff to like 80s, 90s TV, it'd probably be Hulu Plus right now. So at that point, like all of these niches are being met, and it's very unusual to actually see it happen. Moving on into the next story that didn't make the cut, and there's a good reason. We don't have a whole lot to go off of, but we have received confirmation via Alex that Paramount is developing a third Michael Bay Ninja Turtles movie. We don't know if Bay's involved, but it is based on the Turtles that he produced.
I think he is confirmed to be involved as producer still.
He's still involved? Okay. The article that you had, I don't think had him in there. So they didn't have, I don't think they had a cast yet, did they? Or like if they were going to bring returning cast members back?
I don't think so.
This is very
I'm
early.
taking a quick look through it.
This is yeah, for the record, this is very early. They've just basically said that, yes, there will be a third movie. Roughly actually somebody did the math and said, yeah, this is pretty much exactly 2 years after Out of the Shadows happened, which all of us went to go see and kind of had, correct me if I'm wrong, mixed reviews on it.
Oh, yeah.
Let
me quick. Did find it. The studio has hired Andrew Dodge, whose credits include Bad Words, to write the script. Producers are Michael Bay, Andrew Form, and Brad Fuller through their Platinum Dunes production company.
Okay. But we don't have confirmation that like Megan Fox is being brought back as April. We don't know if Stephen Amell is being brought back as Casey Jones.
Right. No confirmation on casting.
Okay. But it is the Bay Turtles. So Bay Turtles number 3. How do we feel about it? I'm just like sitting here going, okay, after Out of the Shadows, like where can they can either go extremely outlandish or they can try and bring things back to serious. And I don't know if I want to see them go back to serious.
You know, honestly, the one thing I hope they learn is to not try to throw every single villain at once, because we got like 3 villains last time and it made it kind of packed.
No, we got 4 because we had Shredder, we had Bebop and Rocksteady, and then we had Krang.
And we had Baxter Stockman.
Oh, we had so 5 villains right there. That's a lot, people. That's a lot. I mean, granted, you could make the claim that like Shredder and Krang were really the villains of the movie, and Baxter, Bebop, and Rocksteady were just kind of henchmen, which is kind of what they were in the 90s series. I get, I'll grant you that. But I mean, these were 5 overall villains that were brought into one movie. One more, and they could have actually done the Sinister Six movie. That could have been a thing. Anyway, Alex, we keep interrupting you.
Yeah, sorry. The first one was so average, and then the second one was just, I was really bored by the second one, so I don't see why they're making a third movie. Besides obviously it made enough money, and that's why. So it's just
there's still a Hollywood consensus that Michael Bay makes money. So,
well, I mean, they're not wrong. He does make money
at the moment. Yeah, they're not wrong.
Yeah, besides the last Transformers movie, most of his movies have still been making money, especially the ones he's just producing. So I'm done with any live action iterations of Ninja Turtles.
Actually, speaking of Transformers, could you do me a favor, Alex? Go check. Is he involved in the Bumblebee movie?
I think he's still producing that one.
I think he's the producer. And by the way, for the people who wanted to know my opinion on the Bumblebee trailer, I don't care. I watched it, but I don't care.
Even though it's got John Cena in it.
I'm sorry, but you need to do it, even though it's got John Cena. It has John Cena looking very, very, very constipated.
So basically, John Cena circa the Marine.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I would actually say a little bit more in that direction, Romney. Because even then he was still kind of laid back. Now he's even more serious. So, I mean, you have that. Then a lot of people wanted my opinion on I guess they devolved, because this is a prequel, they devolved Starscream into his G1 form. And no, guys, it's not his G1 form. It's not. It's his original form made to look more white and red. That's what it looks like. And that's gleaning 10 seconds of trailer footage. So no, that's not necessarily what it is. But anyway, we keep cutting off Alex. So
yeah, to confirm your question, yes, Michael Bay is indeed still producing the Bumblebee film.
Who's the director?
Travis Knight.
Okay, that name sounds familiar.
Let's say he did Kubo and the Two Strings, the Box Trolls, Paranorman, Coraline as an animator, Moon Girl as an animator. So mostly his experiences in animation.
Okay, that'll be interesting for Bumblebee. And then the final one that we actually need to get into, and this one is actually a listener request for Stephen Romney. And that is that I guess they tried to ask you on your channel or on your Twitter and you didn't respond, probably because you were working at the time.
Or I never got the message. Otherwise, I would have gotten the email.
Yeah, so they sent so guess what? They sent it to me. And that is whether or not Romney was aware that Mountain Dew Ice is a thing, which is basically Crystal Mountain Dew. And can we foresee Crystal Pepsi The Reckoning, where Romney forces us to drink Crystal Mountain Dew? Okay.
That was
again,
a one-shot,
quotations on forces. He didn't force anybody, people.
Yeah. People, the Crystal Pepsi thing was a one-shot because it became a running gag of, like, throughout the podcast. But Mountain Dew Ice, yes, I'm aware it exists. I've basically been told it just basically tastes like Mountain Dew trying to be Sprite, except failing. So, yeah,
Really?
the Crystal Pepsi thing was a one-shot.
Really? That's like 3 Sprites that Pepsi has, isn't it? Oh, wait, no, they discontinued 7-Up. So 7-Up's no longer a thing, but they still have Sierra Mist.
Yeah, they just call it Mist now.
Really?
Or like Mist
I didn't
Twist
even know that.
Yeah, they call it Mist Twist now, so it's not even called Sierra Mist. It's called Mist Twist now. But yeah, point being,
like
yes, I'm aware
yellow.
Mountain Dew Ice is a thing. Yes, I've seen the Super Bowl commercial. But honestly, there's just, yeah. That was
there's
a
nothing
one-off.
else we can offer, guys. I mean, like what else could we do aside from this drink might also attack my throat too, and then it'll sit on my desk for 6 months, probably even a year, until I finally just decide, okay, either I got to finish this or I've got to move on.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, people, if you want to get stuff to me, if it was through YouTube's Messenger messages thing, nobody used that, so that's probably what happened. They've rolled out a new one, but honestly, the best way to get stuff to me, Twitter, @RomneyReviews. No apostrophe S, because they wouldn't let me put it, so it's @RomneyReviews.
And the sad reality is I can't even tell you how they tried to contact you because they didn't even tell me. So,
well, yeah. So more than likely, they probably tried sending a message through YouTube itself, but no one checked the message thing. That's why YouTube got rid of it and replaced it with their new Messenger knockoff. So
yeah, which by the way works worse than the, like, I'm not saying the private messages worked all that well, but this works worse than that.
Yeah, so probably best way to ask me stuff, Twitter. Because if you tweet at me, I'll probably most likely see it.
There you go, guys. All right, so it is 8 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get things ready to go.
Sound speed.
Rolling.
Let's see. 3, 2, 1. Cool. And then for the other story, I just need to dig that out really quick. Let's see. And then I'll get things started. I actually forgot to get that. And then I closed all of my web browser. What the hell? There we go. Here we go. This is going to go into one of the stories that we have tonight. Okay. If you guys are ready, here we go. Welcome, everybody, to another awesome episode of Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where we talk the week's events in Geek for Friday night, June 22nd, 2018. Yes, last Sunday was a fluke, people. We are still on Friday. Nothing's changed. Calm down. We just had to make things work for that Sunday, that one time. We're still on Friday nights. I am, of course, your host, Adam Mickelson, a.k.a. Drac. I hope everybody has had an awesome week, or even 2 weeks if you guys weren't able to join us for our post-E3 coverage. And, of course, I'm being joined by my panel of fellow YouTubers, fellow awesome guys, fellow creators, fellow reviewers, fellow, again, awesome guys in general. If you guys aren't following their content, you should be, damn it. And we'll start things off with the Shadow Blazer, Alex Short. How are you doing this fine night, Alex?
Well, today's been an interesting day. Of course, I have my usual morning work. No big deal there. Just usuals. Then, of course, I cap off two of my seasonal anime watchings as two shows I've been following have come to an end. One is what you'd probably expect out of me. The other was sort of the 12 episodes of what the fuck did I just watch? Because it was
You watched Fully Cooley?
No. I said 12
what
episodes.
That is.
I said 12 episodes, so
okay, all right, I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
So, no, I did. I just finished Magical Girls Sight, which is a horror magical girls show, and deep, dark, disturbing, everything twisted all over the place. So, naturally, I'm throwing together a review of it. I've been kind of working on that over the last hour to kind of get the groundwork going on that.
What you're basically saying is the next time that we record Resident Evil 2 together, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I'll be just fine until the spiders show up. Then,
and then you're going to scream like a girl. And then we'll have camera. All right. And then we're also being joined by Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah, of From the Shelf, Rhapsody in Cinema, Martial March, Monster Clash, and whatever other movie magic he decides to just put out there for your enjoyment. Stephen Romney, how you doing?
Well, doing all right. The past couple of days have been kind of rough because I've been dealing with a really nasty canker sore on my lip. So if the way I'm talking sounds a little bit different, it's because I'm trying to be careful not to bite it again and again. So
yeah. And in fact, we'll try and keep things. Thankfully, this week we don't have a whole lot of legal jargon or anything like that, so that'll help things out in Romney's case.
Yep. And in more positive news, I mean, I've been getting to work on some various projects. I've even found something that I may do as a future review. I just haven't decided which series it would go in. So yeah, there's a few things in the works.
Okay. All right, so we do have plenty of stories to actually get to, but the first thing that I actually want to get off the agenda at the top of the first hour here is actually a little bit of spring cleaning that we had from E3. Now, we do also have another spring cleaning story later on with our Nintendo talk, but this one, a listener wanted our opinion on this, and in fact, it was actually something that I hadn't considered. We talked a lot about our positives. We didn't necessarily talk too much about the stuff that wasn't at E3 this year. And so I'm not going to make this a long segment, people, so don't worry too much about that. But we were actually able to cobble together some of the missing projects from E3 2018. And that way you guys can know, like, or you can see the panel's genuine reactions on if we were disappointed the fact that it wasn't there. And we'll even clarify on some of the other things that might have interfered with it. And of course, the first one that gets brought up is, as a lot of people might have expected, the Final Fantasy VII Remake was not there. Technically. This is another one where I have an update. It technically was, because people did ask Square Enix reps where it was, and they basically said that it had cleared its conception stages, like its second conception stages. And for all the people who are going, no, it was further than that. Okay. You got to remember, CyberConnect 2 was involved at that point, and all of those assets are no longer in play. So this is a fresh Square One Final Fantasy VII Remake. That's why it wasn't there, is because it's still in its early concept stages. Just going around the panel, were we disappointed at the fact that the 7 Remake wasn't there? Even if we weren't for ourselves, were we disappointed because friends were looking forward to it?
I could have told you it wasn't going to be there, considering how recently it was just announced that CyberConnect 2 was dropped. You have to assume that this is still kind of in a state of slow development, and it makes sense. They likely had to really go back to the drawing board and start over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm in the same boat. I mean, we literally, the week before E3 or the weeks leading up to it, we covered all the crap that went down. And so it just wouldn't have made any business sense for Square to try to show something off before they actually, can give a definitive release date, a definitive idea of what it's going to look like. And honestly, we've had the field trip to Skywalker Ranch. I mean, most we would have gotten would be a field trip to Square Enix headquarters, and that would have been about it, if anything.
Wait, Are you saying, Romney, that we would have seen that mysterious basement where there's an altar of Cloud and Sephiroth that they pray to?
No, they wouldn't have that, especially since they renovated it to put Noctis in there now.
That's true. They probably actually what they did, Romney. They didn't even edit it. They just they took a statue of Noctis, just put him right in the middle, and just slabbed it in there.
Yeah. No, they just literally just had to paint the Cloud statue, chisel a few things off. But it worked about the same.
Pretty much. The second game that was also evidently missing was Red Dead Redemption 2, which has actually been a much anticipated title for a lot of mainstream gamers. The main reason that a lot of people were disappointed that it didn't show up. But from what I understand, Rockstar, they just don't have a good relationship with E3. That's why we've never seen a Grand Theft Auto there. I don't even think that no, actually, never mind. Max Payne 2 went 1 year, but then none of the other Max Paynes went. And in fact, it was actually a little bit of a shock when Remedy, the Max Payne creators, came out for the Sony conference with their game Control. So at that point, a lot of people were disappointed that Red Dead Redemption 2 wasn't there. We have received a little bit of an update. It looks like that they're going to be making either their own little event to kind of unveil Red Dead, or it's going to show up at another event later in the year. But yeah, it's actually not that surprising to me because Rockstar never, at least in my recollection, has never had a presence at E3. So yeah, it was not there. Do you guys have any thoughts on Red Dead?
Not really, because I'm not that big of a fan, but honestly, given the types of games Rockstar has put out and just the amount of PR nightmares they've had, it just probably doesn't make business sense for them to even try advertising at E3. I mean, a lot of people forget about the whole war with Rockstar we had between Rockstar and Jack Thompson. And honestly, a lot of companies, a lot of smaller third-party companies are realizing, okay, instead of investing all this money on a huge press show at E3, let's just do what Nintendo did and just unveil the stuff on our own terms online and save ourselves the headache of booking the venue and getting like the celebrity guests. It's honestly, given where Rockstar is, it's probably the smarter, more fiscally responsible decision to just promote the game on their own terms instead of trying to basically battle the already crowded floors of the E3 show floor.
Pretty much. And again, like with E3, there are like two major companies that had a kind of not a big showing at E3. Like they didn't show up that often. Rockstar is one of them. And then the other one was the now defunct THQ. THQ would have very few games to actually show off at E3. The only time that I know that they kept a booth there consistently was when they had the WWE license for a while. And after the buyout, you know, like they're defunct now, but THQ Nordic has not improved that relationship kind of thing.
Yeah, well, it's to be expected for a company that used to be LJN.
Pretty much. That wonderful rainbow of crap. Anyway, so the next one up is Metroid Prime 4. And technically, yes, it was not there, but we did get an update from the Nintendo developers that it was still being worked on. So we know that that's still happening, but even I think I was the one that was disappointed that Metroid Prime 4 wasn't there. But I think you guys were just excited that we got Smash kind of thing.
Well, again, Smash wasn't the main thing that won me over for E3, and so honestly, out of everything that was announced, Nintendo didn't really get on my radar because, again, Resident Evil 2 for me was the show winner for this year's E3. That after seeing what we got with Resident Evil 2 Remake, Nintendo, I mean, yeah, Fire Emblem looks interesting, but that's because I'm a Fire Emblem fan, but compared to, oh, that looks nice, as opposed to Resident Evil 2, where it's just like, okay, I am getting this. Nintendo didn't really drop on a radar, and honestly, Nintendo does it smart. They wait until they actually have something to show before showing it at E3. Take some notes, Square. Pretty
much. The other thing, too, on Nintendo's docket was the Pokemon 2019 title, and it's under the exact same umbrella. They don't have enough to show yet. They confirmed again, like Metroid, that it is in development, that we will be able to see a lot more out of it in later Nintendo Directs, but right now there's just not a whole lot to show, which is expected. Okay, so like we can kind of and their focus was more on Let's Go. They wanted to showcase Let's Go and the merging of Pokemon, the main Pokemon property as well as Pokemon Go. That's what they wanted to do. The next one on the list was, and this one was a bit of a shocker, the Crystal Dynamics Avengers project that got announced last year, I think. We still have not seen anything on it, and technically, Square Enix does have the company that created the original Marvel Ultimate Alliance games, as well as, what was it, X-Men Generations was what it was called?
I'm not sure.
The predecessor to Ultimate Alliance. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Whoosh.
Oh, really? Yeah. So there were 2 X-Men games before Ultimate Alliance happened. And I think it was called X-Men Generations. One dealing with Magneto and one dealing with Apocalypse. And then eventually they graduated it up into the Avengers.
Yeah, because I remember the one dealing with Apocalypse. I remember that being a thing, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then eventually that same company went on to go do, what was it? X-Men Destiny? No, that was a different company, but they're also bought by Square Enix. And they had problems all their own. So yeah, that was missing. And I'll admit I'm a little disappointed by that one because I've been wanting to know about this project for a while. I want to see a return of the Ultimate Alliance games. But I also know that, look at Marvel Heroes. Marvel Heroes didn't do very well, and in fact is going under. So, and I actually think it's shutting down soon. So at that point,
Yeah, I think the only Marvel massively multiplayer foray that is still doing well is Contest of Champions. But even then, that's a whole different ball game of trying to create a mobile plus casual friendly fighting game. So yeah, that's probably could be another reason why we didn't see it, is that maybe Marvel's getting a little bit more hesitant to think, okay, well, Marvel Heroes didn't work. So should we really be sinking money into video game properties when they aren't really making that money back? Because let's face it, for every 1 or 2 good Marvel games, there's been a lot of crap.
True. Again, we did get a Square Enix rep addressing the situation, and they basically said, yeah, it's still in development. They don't have a whole lot to show at this point. So and when they do, they'll do their own major event to unveil it. But right now, their main focus is getting Kingdom Hearts out.
And especially when you consider the impending buyout of Fox, either to Comcast or to Disney, they're probably waiting for that to settle, so that way they'll know what characters they'll be allowed to use, because that'll probably be the deciding factor.
I would not be surprised if that played a factor, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember the very first Avengers video game we got shortly after the first Avengers movie. What were the characters we saw in the trailer? All the characters that Disney did not have the rights to, thus leading to brand confusion. And so that's probably the biggest thing here, is they're waiting, okay, are we going to be able to use the X-Men or not?
And I can guarantee you, if they actually do have the rights to the Fox characters, I don't even have to bet money Deadpool will be in it. He'll be added. So the next game on the list is Shenmue 3. Now, I already addressed this. They didn't really address it there. And in fact, I don't even think the Kickstarters got an update on Shenmue 3 after that point. They actually kind of tried to address the situation at a conference or an expo, I think a month or 2 earlier. So they said that it was still in development. So yeah, I already knew that it wasn't going to be there, or it was disappointing that it wasn't there, but now it kind of makes sense why. Unless you guys have any other thoughts on that, I don't think so, because I think I'm the Shenmue fan here.
Yeah, I think they're mainly going to wait to see how the Shenmue 1 and 2 remasters are going to perform before they really decide to move forward.
Actually, a lot of the discussion that I've heard is that they want to see how well those do, because of the fact that the project might actually be running out of money and Sony's getting impatient. So that might also be the issue. Another one was an indie game that was showcased off last year called The Last Night. And it got a lot of acclaim because it looked similar to a game from way back in the Super Nintendo era called Out of This World. And so a lot of people were focused on that. We don't have an update on that one. I think the dev has just been largely absent. Well, and either he's working on the game or he's decided not to. So that one, unfortunately, is not there. I don't know if you guys remember The Last Night at all.
I'm looking it up, and all I keep getting is Transformers.
Yeah.
I had to specify a game to get what I'm looking for. And
yeah, it was shown off in the Microsoft Indie Showcase, so I don't even think Alex would have seen it.
Yeah, that's why.
Cared. Also, this one did get addressed back in March, but the absence of Artifact, which is, so people might know that Bethesda has kind of a Hearthstone clone with the Elder Scrolls Heroes. This is Dota 2's version. It's a card game based very much kind of like Hearthstone, but it's based on Dota 2. That one we already knew back in March that it was still being in development, so it was probably not going to make a showing at E3. And we also do have in the indie department as well, In the Valley of Gods, which is the next game that Camposanto Productions is working on. And if you don't know that studio, they are the creators of the game Firewatch. And they actually had a worthwhile reason as far as I'm concerned, because a month before E3, the company got bought by Valve. And so at that point, they actually have admitted that they've had to move from their San Francisco office to Seattle, where Valve is based. So they've been busy moving. That's why we didn't see In the Valley of Gods. They've been too busy packing up and moving to Seattle. And then finally,
so I guess you could say they couldn't show In the Valley of the Gods because they're too busy moving out of the Silicon Valley.
Pretty much. The next one is another Nintendo title, Yoshi Switch. We didn't see that. Again, Nintendo kind of brushed over it and said it's still in development. We don't have a whole lot to show right now. And then that also goes for the Platinum title, Bayonetta 3. It's still in development. We don't have a whole lot to show. And therefore, is it disappointing that those two that those two weren't there? Yeah, a little bit. But Bayonetta, it made sense. Yoshi Switch, that was a little bit of a shocker, because that's a cute little game that you would think would be releasing by the holidays this year.
I heard it's been pushed back to next year.
It's been yeah, it has. In fact, I think it's right now a holiday 2019 release.
Yeah, that, and they probably will wait to show it off until after Pokemon Let's Go has kind of run its course, because if you show off too many cutesy things together, you lead to a cutesy overload, and then people's eyes glaze over, like mine usually do.
Pretty much. The other two and the final two on the list, Dead Island 2 was not there. I didn't even know that Dead Island 2 was in development. It looks like it got announced.
How the hell did that thing get a sequel? I thought the first one was such a train wreck.
It got a sequel. Remember the whole controversy about the bikini zombie statue? That was on a sequel called Riptide.
Yeah, and I thought Riptide was their attempt to salvage it, but I didn't think they would actually... You'd think they would just give it another subtitle, not like, oh, we're going to do the whole Kingdom Hearts thing and call a spinoff, and then try to unnumber... It's just, why,
no,
how...
Believe it or not, I have a family member who is a big Dead Island fan. Riptide was considered a sequel, or at least some kind of a offshoot. And now that, there is a Dead Island 2, and no, we don't have anything aside from, I guess it got announced way back in 2016. And developer Sumo Digital has taken over development of the game, so it already looks like it's moved over to other people. And there's actually been no sign of it, but and even this article that I've got has said at least we got Dying Light 2.
I guess pretty much the three questions I have are then this. How, why, and what misleading trailer can we expect to promote it?
Yeah, no kidding, right? I can already tell you guys I was not expecting it. I thought after the whole scandal of Riptide, I'm actually kind of surprised that didn't kill Deep Silver with how people reacted to that bikini zombie statue that they put out. But no, Deep Silver was still able to ship out Mighty Number 9. So there you go. And then the final game was actually announced at the Game Awards for 2017 called Witchfire. This is a shooter from the folks that made The Vanishing of Ethan Carter and Bulletstorm. We have the trailer from the Game Awards, but it was not there, and we don't have any information from the developers on it. I will be honest right here and now, this is the first I've ever heard of Witchfire. I only caught the highlights of the Game Awards, so I didn't even see this trailer, and it looks pretty cool, like the image that I've got on my screen, but it's not enough to bring me into it. So sadly, no development on that one from E3. We don't know what's going on with it. But there you go. Now that we've brushed that under the rug, unless you guys have any final thoughts on the ones that I just covered. But I think...
Let's see. When I tried to look up the Witchfire on Wikipedia, it just redirected me to the actual development company. Regarding the last night, it sounds like there's been some political baggage around that based on some controversies. I don't know, tweets or whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if that has killed it on arrival before. There's no information on its development, but it definitely sounds like there's some airs of controversy around it. Political controversy. So
did that developer try to do a Phil Fish? Oh.
Probably. And that's all I gotta say.
Yep. Well, let's go ahead and move on into the stories that we actually have, because I don't think Romney has any thoughts on Witchfire. So
Never even heard of it.
yeah, that's kind of the overall look on the matter. So the first story that we have tonight at the top of the tech portion of the evening is actually in regards to everybody's favorite game store, GameStop. And things aren't too good for them, as they are possibly in talks for a buyout. So people might remember earlier this year, the CEO, Michael Mahler, resigned for personal reasons back in May. Okay. We don't know what those personal reasons are, but a lot of people have cited that it could be a number of reasons, one of which being GameStop has had a significant decline in numbers overall because of the rise of digital games, or at least digital games distribution that has really hurt GameStop. And his personal reasons might actually have been the concept of he couldn't keep things up and running. So we have that. And then also after that development, it looks like Sycamore Partners, one of the private equity firms that has expressed interest in GameStop, has made some offers to buy out all of the game stores. We don't know numbers yet. We don't have any confirmation as to what Sycamore would do. Obviously, with a company buyout, you can expect like stores to close, people to be laid off. And given the fact that GameStop would have to contend with digital games distribution as well as regular games distribution, like physical games, they'd have to change their business model a little bit. Now, a lot of people were hoping that the changes to the, the Power Up program that they were trying to implement, where you could rent games from rent used games from GameStop, would have helped. But remember, that system got pulled like literally a week later. Because they saw a lot of the problems with it and went back to the drawing board. So you couldn't necessarily go with that. And, if Sycamore, let's just say for the sake of argument, if Sycamore Partners buys them, I don't know if that system's coming back, because they'd obviously have to change a lot of what GameStop does in order to make it profitable. Right now, GameStop is, a proverbial money sink at this point, because it just gets worse and worse every year. What are you guys' thoughts on GameStop almost possibly not being a thing in the next year or two?
Honestly, it doesn't surprise me. And there's literally a Facebook post I saw earlier in the week that kind of summarizes why a lot of companies have been going to the wayside. And I'm literally trying to find it now. It's just Facebook doesn't want to cooperate with me, because apparently it thinks reordering my feed is more important. But to kind of summarize, like, it's a quotation where it's a case of Netflix didn't kill Blockbuster, super high late fees killed Blockbuster.
Yeah.
And like Amazon. Okay, I found it. So literally it says Netflix did not kill Blockbuster, ridiculous late fees did. Uber did not kill the taxi business, limited access and fare control did. Apple did not kill the music industry, being forced to buy full-length albums did. Amazon did not kill other retailers, poor customer service and experience did. And that's the key point here. It's the simple fact of not being customer-centric is what is killing GameStop. Trying to nickel and dime people left and right with their very stupid, used games around, trying to basically, left and right, trying to game the system. That is what is killing GameStop. And honestly, I've stopped buying new games from GameStop. If I want something brand new, I get it from Amazon, because Amazon, I get it day of. I don't have to go to the store. They send it to me. Even digitally, it's a case where it's just a simple fact of business is business. Companies are coming along that do GameStop, that basically do GameStop better than GameStop is at doing GameStop. And honestly, that's the way it goes. GameStop has shot themselves in the foot, and now they're paying the price.
And I think you actually bring up a good point that Alex can probably bring up too, because I think you and I have shared stories together, is that GameStop has, one of its biggest complaints for the longest time has been its customer interaction. For the longest time, I didn't even go to GameStop because I knew I was going to get a bad customer experience. If I needed a specific part, that's when, and I knew that GameStop was the only one that provided it. Most of the time I went to Best Buy. But when I knew that they specifically had the part, I would go, but I would not expect like a miracle. I would not expect good customer service. Over the last 2 years, that's kind of changed now that I do reviews, because my local GameStop has a really amazing staff. Unfortunately, that amazing staff kind of gets treated crappy by its management. So at that point, it's like, oh, well, eventually they're going to have to leave, and I'm not going to have any incentive to go back once they're gone. So that's kind of the crying shame. But that's the complaint that I think about 90% of people who have shopped at GameStop and no longer do so have. And I've even shared my horror story of, when I was going to pre-order Final Fantasy 12 and being pelted with the fact that I wasn't a gamer because I wasn't buying the latest Grand Theft Auto at the same time, kind of thing. And that was stupid. Alex, I think you've got a horror story from GameStop too, don't you?
Not really, not of my own. I've always had an okay experience to average, to average experience when going to GameStop, but I've certainly heard plenty of horror stories from ex-employees or people who frequented GameStop. So it doesn't surprise me. It is, as Romney has said, GameStop has been notorious for really kicking their customers in the ass and finding shady ways to get you to sign up for their credit cards and all sorts of stuff. It's not really a surprise when they are kind of paying the price for it.
Exactly. It really isn't. And it's just kind of a crying shame that this is how it's going out, is like the companies that made up GameStop and eventually got beat out. I mean, most of them were mom and pop shops for the most part. Like, they were part of a branding, but they still had their own autonomy. But then GameStop came along and just kind of killed all that. Like, I remember loving Software, etc., because that's what they were before in our local ones. And I mean, my family and my older brother and me had such a good relationship with the manager. He even when they got bought out by GameStop, he became the district manager for all of that, and eventually left because of company politics. But it was like, oh my gosh, like this was so amazing to be able to go to the game store, and it's just not there anymore, unfortunately. Now, with that being said, a lot of local listeners to the podcast have been pointing out some mom and pop shops to me, and I've checked out a few of them. My only problem is that distance is the thing. And for a lot of them, like one of them is straight out in Salt Lake City. And for me, that's at least 30 minutes, give or take traffic. So that's not local to me. And therefore it's not necessarily something I want to support.
Yeah, honestly, the only advantage mom and pop game stores have nowadays is for the retro collectors, because I'm the weirdo who likes trolling through used DVDs and used game stores looking for rare titles that are out of print. And honestly, I've been seeing, at least with the ones I go to, they've been embracing that, thinking, okay, we can't really compete with the new games because, well, Amazon and digital only, so we'll tailor our store to be like, okay, find your old retro titles here that you can't find anywhere else. Like, DVD Game Exchange is probably my favorite because they have everything nice and organized. They group everything by system. They even have some rare systems. I mean, I've got a Game Boy Micro from them. And so that's kind of what mom and pop stores have been doing to kind of counteract it. It's like a case of, okay, well, Amazon and those services have the new systems covered. Let's cater to the retro gamers who like hunting around, and it's been paying off for them.
Yeah, that's really what keeps mom and pop game stores afloat these days, is that they can kind of corner the retro gaming market. They're usually the ones that are selling off like the Retrons and all of the retro gaming consoles now, or when they get those occasional really good finds in like a box, then they'll sell them off on eBay, and that's what keeps the store up and running. But that's really where their market goes into, unless the one that got recommended to me tried to merge like everything geek. And so at that point, I'm like, yeah, it's a mom and pop game store, but it has used DVDs. It also has board gaming. It has all that stuff put together. And so it's a little bit more than that. I don't know if I want to lump it into that.
Yeah. So it sounds like they were trying to basically make themselves into a mom and pop version of FYE, which...
Pretty much, yeah. Like they tried to cater to every geek market.
And therein lies the problem. If you spread yourself too thin, you're gonna crumble.
Yeah, and what actually made me laugh, and one of the reasons why I haven't gone to this one specifically, is like they would pre-order new games, like they would do the midnight releases and all that stuff, but unlike working with a lot of the retailers, what they would do is like you could pre-order with them, and then they'd order the game on Amazon. So at that point, it's like, oh, so you're basically asking a guy to order something on Amazon for you. You might as well just order the game on Amazon and move on with your life. Final thoughts on this one. I don't think this is going to be resolved anytime soon, but it is still kind of a crying shame that GameStop might not be here in the next 2 years.
I wouldn't really call it a crying shame, because again, that's implying that we're losing something by losing GameStop.
I mean, if it went back into being software, etc., yeah, I'd probably cry a little bit just because I would want that kind of mom and pop store experience. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I wish we could treat I wish their employees could be treated better. Then you'd probably get a better experience and more loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on into the next story that we have, which is another update in the Billy Mitchell situation. So for those who are needing a quick run or a quick catch up, Billy Mitchell's Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, and Donkey Kong Jr. scores after vigorous debate, vigorous investigation were removed as they could not deem that the scores were done on approved hardware. Okay. A long investigation went into it, and it was eventually deemed that the way that the videotapes that Billy Mitchell submitted could not possibly have been on up and up hardware. So at that point, all of his scores were removed. We even got a message from him in a con right after saying, I am already in the process of digging out tons of documentation and videos and everything like that to prove this wrong, kind of thing. Well, Billy then decided that he was going to start a Road to Redemption tour. He's literally called it that, people. And he started things off at a con that literally ran last weekend and had a full-on panel where I guess the premise of the panel, they even brought a games journalist to mediate it. The premise of the panel was that anybody could ask anything of Billy to get his opinion on the matter, and nobody got to ask a question. Why? Because Billy was too busy talking for 55 minutes straight. Not necessarily. I mean, he talked about the situation. Don't get me wrong. The problem is that, as this article kind of points out, he also rambled a lot. He brought up a bunch of situations aside from this that, basically he's trying to. This is basically how he addressed this current situation. He's still working on gathering up all the documentation and the witnesses and all that stuff, but he's also working on his gaming skills. He's getting himself back up to par so that he can once again regain his place in the Donkey Kong community, or in the Donkey Kong and Pac-Man community. Apparently, he doesn't understand what a permanent ban means. It doesn't matter, Billy. You don't get to go back to Twin Galaxies. Okay? Even if you redeem yourself, I don't think the Twin Galaxies database is going to bring you back in. But then it took a turn for the weird as he started telling stories about basically how his family, how his son, how his wife have all been being harassed by people who are dedicated in the purpose of overthrowing Billy Mitchell. And it's a sad reality. Those people do exist. Okay. There are people who have dedicated their lives to destroying one man. And look, I'm not saying the man's a saint. I am not devoting 24 hours of my day towards destroying Billy Mitchell. At that point, I would say, get a hobby. And unfortunately, those people do exist. But then we got into the weird stories of apparently how some of them got the FBI to investigate his son in regards to a child porn thing. These were the weird stories that he was kind of telling for 55 minutes straight. And the funniest part is that he would get the occasional person raising their hand, and then after about 10 minutes, the person would just lower their hand because they would know they're not going to get addressed. They're not going to get their questions answered. I mean, here's a couple of things that he said as quotes for the 55-minute ramble. I don't believe in journalism. That's why I don't do interviews. I challenge any of you. Raise your hand and tell me the last interview I did. You can't. You're in for a ride. There's so many quotes in here just of him rambling on. And the best part is that he even kind of went into the original Khan's speech of he's there to play games. The way he compared it is the race car driver is not there to know about your tires or something like that. He's not there to know about the workings of the car. He's there to drive the car. Okay, and that's what he does. He plays the games. He lets other people handle all that stuff for him. not helping his situation at all. Now, I see an interesting look off of Romney and an interesting look off of Alex. Alex, where are you at with this, man?
What is? I don't know. What is this guy on? That's all I can ask. This guy.
I can only tell. I can't tell you what he's on. I can tell you that he was he was told not to do this. It sounds to me like for good reason.
Yeah.
Just. Oh, Judy. Yeah, it's an. I wish that we had. I actually tried to look up on YouTube to see if anybody recorded him for the 55-minute ramble. It would probably be the most entertaining thing ever, but unfortunately, all we have is this Variety article. It's kind of a sad thing. Romney, where are you standing with it?
Honestly, Billy Mitchell should probably consider stepping away from video games and considering a career in politics, because it looks like he's mastered the art of talking but not actually saying anything. Yeah. I mean, honestly, this line from the Variety article pretty much summarizes it pretty much succinctly. It says, the panel was less an explosion than an hour-long seeping of odorless gas into a room full of waterlogged dynamite.
Pretty much. I mean, like, he tried to address everybody. He addressed all the people who had been harassing him. He even tried to address YouTubers like Apollo Legend, who had been reporting on the situation. This is literally his quote. They're jealous crybabies who want to be worshipped sitting behind their keyboards. So I guess that counts us because we've also been reporting on this situation.
So this is the man who levied a lawsuit because a show made fun of him.
Exactly.
Yeah, or as I like to call it, the Donald Trump defense.
Yeah. The only thing that I can think of to say on this situation is, after reading this article going, wow, how the mighty have fallen. That's all I could think of, because this doesn't feel like a beginning of a road to redemption and proving everybody wrong. This feels like a descent into madness. This feels like, holy crap, everything has gotten to Billy and he has snapped at some point or another and nobody's realized it yet.
Yeah, this reminds me of that Charlie Sheen tour that he went on after he quit Two and a Half Men, where he basically went on tour where people were paying tickets just to listen to him rant on stage for 2 hours.
Was this where the whole Cheetah blood thing or whatever happened?
Yeah, like the tiger's blood, the whole winning thing. This reeks of that, where it's just like, he has no idea what the hell he's doing. He's just expecting people to listen to him rant, and hopefully he can sway them via said ranting. But honestly, and I especially like in the comments of the Variety article where they were talking about, oh, there was an actual Donkey Kong cabinet there, but then people were kind of arguing the semantics of, oh, well, it was an aftermarket board that switches between Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. It's like, okay, so, well, clearly they had a cabinet there, and he's saying, oh, they don't have a cabinet. It's like, clearly they did, which means even him saying, oh, I'm going to play the game, well, they had a cabinet there. Even if it was aftermarket, it would still show, hey, you've actually got some skills. Well,
at this point, that at the bare minimum, like, maybe you couldn't record a record on it, but you could have certainly practiced on it, kind of thing. And actually somebody did. I actually was able to find this out from other YouTube videos that analyze this. People did ask him about that cat, or later on, they asked the gaming journalist that was supposed to mediate and failed at it. You know, like, there was a Donkey Kong cabinet here. Why didn't he try to play it? Nothing. Just straight nothing. So,
yep.
Honestly, I didn't have the most love for Billy Mitchell, but this makes me almost. I now feel what Bilbo felt and now pity him like Bilbo pitied Gollum. I really do. Because, first of all, what people don't realize is, I mean, I think he still had the perfect game on Pac-Man. I don't think he had scores beating him at that point. But with Donkey Kong Jr., I think he was 4th. And with Donkey Kong, he was the 6th or 7th score at this point. Like, he had since been beaten.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like this whole Road to Redemption tour just makes me just facepalm. It's like, you know, a lot of people. And here's the thing: there are things to look up to Billy Mitchell for. He is a successful businessman. He has a successful chain of restaurants and a successful hot sauce empire. But now it's like, oh, well, if this is going to be your obsession, Billy, then those things are going to fall apart pretty soon too. because you're gonna flush all your money to try and prove a game score that you like, a number one score you didn't even have anymore. You have to prove it wrong. This is just not gonna work out.
Yeah, honestly, the best thing I think everyone can do at this point is just don't give him any attention, and he'll just go away.
Yep. Or, we didn't report on this, but months ago, there was actual rumors of, I think it was an Ohio high school, wanting to do a musical on Billy Mitchell. Now I kind of want to see that happen. And what was funny about that was they actually did later on reach out to Billy and to Walter Day to attend its debut. Billy refused. Walter said he'd come.
Oh, boy.
It's like, really? Billy, you refused? But no, not Walter Day. Walter Day wants to support the community.
I mean, if they're going to do a musical, I mean, I can see it as like a jukebox musical just for the sole purpose of having a performance of Pac-Man Fever. I mean, come on. You got to work that in somehow.
Yeah, or I mean, part of me wants to just have that little dig of, I don't know how to do the Donkey Kong scores and maintain my number one score. And all of a sudden somebody comes out in a tux and he goes, let me tell you about a thing called MAME. And therefore they get a dig at him. Romney already has that look of like, wow, nails on a chalkboard, don't ever do that again. I haven't figured out the tune to it.
No, it wasn't that. It's just, again, my sore was acting up. That's all.
So, final thoughts on this one. Final thoughts on the Road to Redemption period. I don't think we're covering the Road to Redemption, people. It sounds like Rat Fest 2018.
Yeah,
God, I don't want to do the day-by-day play on this.
I mean, it might get entertaining after a while, but
I mean, honestly, I'll literally save you both tons of work. Just watch this one, record a video about it, and then just upload it every time he speaks. It'll probably be about the same, so it'll save you work, and you get to upload the same video multiple times and rake in the revenue.
Well, that's the sad reality is, like, I want a video of this first one, but hey, if somebody wants to record us, like, if he does it again, record it, put it up on YouTube. I guarantee you it'll have millions of views.
Before Billy Mitchell throws a tantrum and gets it taken off YouTube.
Oh, he'll throw a tantrum, but I don't think he's got enough relevance anymore. Well, he'll game the system. Never mind.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's a fixer.
He'll sick his neophytes out there and put out a lawsuit to YouTube.
Again, this is a guy who will go after people and have arcade machines dismantled if they're threatening his scores on things like Missile Command. So, yeah. If anyone would game the YouTube algorithm, it would be Billy frickin' Mitchell.
Yep. And speaking of that, Team Weeby for the win. All right. Moving on into the next story that we have is Nintendo talk. And this is, again, another E3 cleanup, but basically a confirmation to a story we had talked about weeks before. Originally, I think it was about a month ago, we talked about the debut of the Nintendo Online system, which was going to be amazingly priced, but also had what a lot of people had come to fear, that being that the virtual console might be at its end. They weren't really looking to, with the information that we had at that point, they weren't really looking to do that anymore. They were going to put NES games up there, but they were going to be multiplayer, and they would incorporate online multiplayer as well as leaderboards and things like that. Now, when we discussed it, we actually just thought it was the departure of the title virtual console, that they were just getting rid of that title and helping it to evolve. And it turns out we were right. So at E3 2018, a Nintendo rep was actually approached on this along with Reggie Fils-Aime, and basically confirmed that the virtual console would not, or the virtual console service as it existed would not be coming to the Nintendo Switch, but is since going to be evolving into the new Switch Online features. So you are still going to get the multiplayer games with online multiplayer and leaderboards and all that stuff, but they have not abandoned the concept of bringing things like RPGs onto that. They're just going to bring them onto the Switch store instead of putting them in their own little hidey hole called a virtual console. In fact, we have a quote from the Nintendo rep, or actually, no, this is from Reggie. The virtual console successor is Nintendo Switch Online, right? With the mentality that says we're going to be offering a slate of games, and it's a slate that's going to increase over time. For many of these games, there's going to be additional online capability provided in those games. That's the vision we have for how to best bring our legacy content to Nintendo Switch. So it's pretty much what we confirmed, is that they were just looking to get rid of the title. And instead, they're just going to bring the games out onto the Nintendo Switch Online store, kind of thing, as an incentive for people to get these services, which I've already talked to a number of our listeners, as well as people that I know and respect within the gaming community. And it's pretty much a consensus. A lot of people love the online service and are more than willing to purchase the family service or whatever service works best for them. But let's ask what you guys think. What do you guys think of this announcement? Is it a good idea that we're still going to be getting those titles, just not in the virtual console form?
Honestly, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah. I'm still not totally clear on this. So the virtual console, as we know it is, going away, but it's all going to the Switch Online store, which is essentially the whole Switch functionality online as we know it, which is like mobile integrated and has the annual service fee. Is that what I'm understanding out of this?
Yes.
Okay.
So you would need the service to be able to access the store itself. That's a little bit of a bummer, but we've been being hinted at that for a while by Nintendo that would be the case. But instead of just saying, okay, we're going to divide the virtual console up and it's just going to be, we bring up an emulated version of that game. In the case of, say, like Super Mario Brothers 3, we're going to add in online multiplayer so you can play with a friend. We're going to add in things like leaderboards for games that actually have arcade scores and things like that to them. But it's not going to stop there. So for people who are worried that like Mario RPG would not come there, that's not the case. They would still look to put games like that up there, even though they're still as static as they used to be, simply because they're single player experiences. That would not change. What would change with it is basically the multiplayer aspect would evolve, and that they would not be put under the banner virtual console, just under Switch Online. Kind of like how PlayStation Network does it. Does that answer your question, Alex?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, on the PlayStation Store, they do divide it up like PS1 games, PS2 games, but you can still purchase them, and they're just static digital versions.
Yeah, so that's what's got me concerned, because it sounds like a way bit more complicated than it needs to be, especially compared to the PlayStation Store, where I don't need to pay the annual subscription to access the store. I mean, if I want like the PSN perks, then yeah, but if I just want to buy an old game because I want to buy an old game, I don't need to also be subscribed to a service and have whatever accessory like a smartphone to go with it.
Well, and that's the other thing that I actually want to point out here, is that a lot of the stuff that we're assuming off of that this would be dependent on the online service isn't necessarily the case, in my opinion, because you can get differing opinions. Granted, this is Reggie talking. So at that point, like he's the go-to guy probably for the US. But a lot of stuff that I've actually read is saying like, no, the way that this would work is the Switch Online service would get access to these games first, kind of like how Club Nintendo would work way back when. But then after a while, you would be able to purchase these games via, because I think they're still going to put out like Switch Online cards and things like that. You could still purchase these games, but you just have to wait a little longer for it. So you might be able, don't quote me on that because I can't get solid confirmation. Different Nintendo devs say different things.
Right.
But that's kind of my guess is how it's going to work, is that Nintendo is going to kind of look at how Sony does things. I do think that online multiplayer will be locked behind the Switch Online feature. Don't get me wrong on that, guys. That's going to happen because that makes sense. But for the games, I don't necessarily see them being locked forever, because that would mean that they would lock all their new releases behind it too, and they need to have those things sell, kind of thing. So like if they want Octopath Traveler to do well, they can't lock it behind a paywall. And if they do, Square Enix will complain. Does that answer your question, Alex?
Yeah, and that's really what I'm hoping for, because I mean there are certainly going to be digital only games, I'm sure, on Switch, small titles that I'd want to pick up, but I can't afford the 2 extra paywalls, because obviously they're going to charge me for the game, plus I'm paying for the service. So
Well,
that's
if
so,
you think
yeah,
about it,
I'm hoping
most
that
indie games on the Switch are digital only.
yeah. So, that's why I'm hoping that digital games, new or old, aren't going to be locked behind the $20 a year fee here.
Yep. The only thing that I see being locked behind it, just because every other service does it, is the online multiplayer.
Right.
So if you want to play Splatoon 2 online, you got to do it that way. If you want to play Smash Ultimate online, you have to do it that way. And that's just because Xbox and PlayStation, they do it too.
Yeah.
Romney, your take on the announcements for the Virtual Console, or at least Switch Online, being its successor?
I mean, it's exactly what we predicted. It's just a case of, okay, they're no longer going to have Virtual Console, the brand. It's just a case of, okay, we're just going to have these games for sale on the Nintendo Switch Online store like any of our other titles. And honestly, that's probably the best way to go. Instead of trying to maintain the branding and trying to maintain separate servers, it's just a case of, okay, here's just these games on the store. Go nuts. So honestly, I don't really have any other opinions aside from it's exactly what we predicted, because that's the direction the business is going. Because you don't see PlayStation, you don't see Sony doing the whole, oh, the PlayStation Virtual Console is just a case of, oh, well, here's some PS1 games and PS2 games that are on our servers if you want to buy them, and that's it.
And in Sony's case, they've changed it a little bit, because I don't think, I think it's PS2 and PS3 that you can get on PS4, but PS1 is still available on PS3.
PS3 and Vita, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there are a few PS1 titles that are allowed on PS4, but it just depends.
Well, yeah, I know they've been working on bringing more titles. Just really, it's a lot of it is dependent upon demand, really.
It really is, and thankfully, a lot of the games that were questionable, if they're getting remakes, then that's happening. Like Medieval, a lot of people were disappointed that it never showed up on the PS4 store, but when the remake announced, they immediately moved it over.
Yeah, here's hoping they decide to do the same thing with Legend of the Dragoon.
That would be awesome. And if that got remade, that would be awesome. Just saying. Sony, are you listening? Okay, cool. And that's actually going to go ahead and do it for our technology portion of the evening. I can't even think of my words right now. I can't word, people. We're going to go ahead and roll into our entertainment side, which has a lot of silly and weird. I'm just going to be honest. This past week has been kind of silly and weird when it came to entertainment. And the first one is kind of the one I think that started the snowball. All right. Just because this story has been the one that a lot of people have been following throughout the week. And that is that I think this thing started off as rumor and then eventually got some kind of confirmation that, well, we'll give the title itself. So future Star Wars story spinoffs are on hold at Lucasfilm. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, because you're the one that's been able to find a lot of the stories here.
Yeah.
We have confirmation to some extent that this is what they're looking to do.
I think it was like an insider information, and it was a fairly credible source, because I can't remember all the details without going through all the sources I found on it.
Yeah.
But I think it was Collider who first broke the story that the Star Wars anthology films were going to probably be put on indefinite hold, mostly due to Solo. Then, of course, at some point, it might have been ABC to kind of break the counter, saying no, they're still going. And of course, granted, ABC is owned by Disney, who also owns Star Wars, so that's definitely a bit of weird suspicion. So we're kind of in this sort of tug of war of like, it's on hold, and the others are saying no, it's not, but we got reasons to think it's on hold, but no, it's not. I don't know.
Yeah. So to bring people to kind of give kind of layman's terms here for what's actually going on in this war that's been going on over the week, because it's not just ABC, like Lucasfilm or Disney has had a rep come out and say it too. Originally, what Collider was actually able to find out is because of Solo's failure. They also kind of cite the failure of The Last Jedi to some extent. It was not as successful as Force Awakens was. they cite both of these reasons, but technically there are 2 or 3 that we know of Star Wars story spinoffs that were in development. An Obi-Wan film, a Boba Fett film, and then there was also talks about another film along with the Rian Johnson trilogy that would be happening after episode 9. And so the original Collider story basically says that they would, to not spread themselves too thin, they'd get rid of, or they'd at least halt the production of the Obi-Wan movie, the Boba Fett movie, the trilogies, and all that stuff to refocus their efforts on developing Star Wars episode 9. Okay. And marketing it and being able to get it out there. Then, like Alex kind of pointed out, ABC and Disney came out and said, no, that's not the case. ABC basically said, no, things are still up and running. And then Disney upped it by basically saying, oh no, there's even more projects that you guys can look forward to, and told us nothing about them. So at that point, that's like, well, I mean, until I see stuff, it's a bald-faced lie kind of thing. Like, that's a really bold claim to make, and then you don't even give us a hint of like other stuff that's being worked on. Okay. Or at least the directors that are working on it, because, well, it's not like you had a really great reputation amongst directors. You were letting them go pretty quick. I know that right now you still have, it's JJ. JJ was working on episode 9. So that's definitely happening. And then the other confirmed thing is Rian Johnson was working on the trilogies, but that might be up in the air. You also had, who were the directors for?
Well, you have another series of movies on the slate being helmed by the producers of Game of Thrones, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, or Weiss. I don't know how they pronounce it.
The Obi-Wan movie, I think, was being done by, let's see.
I don't think anyone's been
there's nobody confirmed for the Obi-Wan movie. Yeah. Boba Fett.
Like Boba Fett, we had James Mangold confirmed.
James Mangold. But before that point, like, just look at the list of people that have been taken off. Josh Trank was working on a film. He got taken off. Gareth Edwards was doing Rogue One. I can't remember if he finished it.
I think he finished the initial shooting of it. Then it went through.
They went back and edited it. Yeah.
They went back and did reshoots.
Yeah, and then they did the whole Phil Lord and Chris Miller situation and brought Ron Howard in to finish off Solo. They had Colin Trevorrow working on episode 9, now J.J. Abrams. I don't know. I don't even know what to make of the Star Wars or at least what Disney Lucasfilm is doing with it. Because, yeah, I could understand if your spin-off stories were taken off because Solo was, what was it, 100 million below its target. I can understand that, but yeah, then at that point you have Disney come out and say, no, that's not the case. In fact, we're working on like multiple other movies.
And we still have the Jon Favreau series in development.
And that wasn't even touched on in the stuff that I found. So, like, I don't know if that's being worked on. I've even heard talk that the creator of Rebels is either halted or is continuing to work on. Basically, he's got a new series in the works that is going to be in the Rebels, or not Rebels, but Episode 7 era. So it's basically Clone Wars, but in Episode 7 era. So we don't know if that's being affected at all. That's how ridiculous this situation is getting, people. At this point, I just kind of want solidarity. Just have Kathleen Kennedy step down and have your new guy and have him clarify everything that has been happening this past week.
Yeah, honestly, looking at this, and a lot of people have still tried to speculate why Solo failed, but and a lot of it is that there's a combination of factors. It's not just one thing. One, you have the backlash from The Last Jedi. Two, you have the fact that they released it in the summer next to 2 major blockbusters. It was literally released the week after, a couple of weeks after Infinity War and ahead of Deadpool 2, so it was already stiff competition. That, and there's also the issue of oversaturation of Star Wars, meaning that it's a case of, oh, hey, there's too much Star Wars. And thirdly, the case of they chose to focus on a character whose story has already run his course, meaning there's no reason for us to care about his past because we already know, like, his story is done, so why the hell are we going back?
Of course, there's also...
But we didn't know the origin of the dice, Romney. We didn't know the origin of the dice. Seriously, that's still a thing from Last Jedi naysayers. Why?
Yeah, and of course, And of course, Star Wars is just not taking off in China like they hoped it would.
Yeah, of course, it doesn't help that literally Episode 7 was the first Star Wars film introducing China to the entire franchise, because they're not going to allow the original trilogy there for a variety of reasons. Yeah. Almost like it's critical of authoritarian governments. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but to kind of bring things back to the main point, they probably have put the projects on hold. That's probably a case where maybe they're trying to think, let's maybe not announce our stuff until we actually know what we're doing yet. Because they realized, okay, Solo didn't quite work out. Releasing it in the summer didn't quite work out. Let's maybe, we'll still do this stuff, but let's maybe hold off until Episode 9, see if we can get back on track with Episode 9, and then, since we've got the new trilogy, because Episode 9 is clearly going to wrap up pretty much all the plot threads we've had for this trilogy, and by extension,
the new trilogy will be based in a different part of the galaxy and different problems.
And point being, that will give them the clean break they need. And honestly, I think that's probably going to be in Disney's best interest of, okay, we'll release Episode 9, end that story, and by extension, the story with the original Star Wars characters, and then we'll start fresh with a new trilogy, new universe, new characters to get attached to, and basically, I think that's honestly the best thing they could do. It's the case of, okay, well, clearly going back into this older timeline isn't working, so let's just wait for the story to end and then start over.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, this is literally how I've taken this last week, because you had the Collider story, which was interesting, and it would make a lot of sense. You know, like Last Jedi is still becoming a problem for them. Solo didn't do very well. It would make sense that financially they'd be hurting a little bit. They would need to hold off on the Obi-Wan and the Boba Fett movie. I was about to say Boba Fett. That's not right. But it would make sense if they were holding off funding on those movies. My problem is that Disney and ABC came out and went, wait. And I'm not willing to accept the statements that they've made. Just because they are wait statements, I really want Disney or Lucasfilm or somebody to come out, do a press conference and say, here's the situation. And I think even if you explain to people that, like, yeah, Solo didn't do very well, Last Jedi is still controversial, we're just withholding our funding a little bit on these things until Episode 9, I think that would be an acceptable answer. Okay? Because a lot of people would be able to look at you and go, yeah, we understand that. Solo wasn't exactly what a lot of people expected. Neither was Last Jedi. Yeah, you need to make sure that your funding is still intact. Mm-hmm. And maybe that would be best, so that then Marvel can hopefully finish off Avengers 4 and take a little bit of a break. I don't know if they're going to do that, but they could take a little bit of a break. And then at that point, Star Wars can kind of work on their other ideas. It also might be a better idea, and they can look at this of, like, maybe we shouldn't have a Star Wars movie coming out every year. Maybe there should just be a Star Wars movie every other year while we go and put that Star Wars polish on it.
Yeah, or alternately, an even better idea, don't try to force Star Wars to play by the Marvel rules. Just have it be where it's like, okay, Marvel movies in the summer, Star Wars movies around Christmas, because that seems to be a pattern that will work out for them. It's a case of, okay, Star Wars will be our holiday season, the family's going to the movie theater, that'll be our Christmas franchise, and then we'll do the Marvel movies during the summer. So even if they want to put one out each year, putting it around the holidays works out better for them. Considering the success of Rogue One, they released it around Christmas, which was around the same time they released The Force Awakens. Honestly, if they want to do it each year, that probably should be the way to do it. Instead of forcing it to be a summer franchise, just have it be their Christmas franchise.
Yeah, exactly. Like if they wanted to do that, then I think I'd be a little bit more okay with it, because even then you could have a little bit of polish with them, because bottom line, it's not like in the development cycle, you're not necessarily looking at a 1 year development cycle. Like in some cases, if you wanted to do the whole Star Wars story in the summer and then do the major stuff in the winter, you could have like a 1.5 year development time to be able to work on this stuff. That'd give you a little bit more polish. But the other thing too is that the Star Wars stories are amazing and all that, but let's find like stories that people actually care about. Okay. I'm not saying that people didn't care about Solo. I know a lot of friends that did, but a lot of people are kind of sitting there going, why are we doing this Obi-Wan movie when we pretty much know everything about Obi-Wan we need to know?
I see a lot more demand for Obi-Wan though than I do for Solo. To be fair.
There's more demand for Obi-Wan compared to Solo, but then the Boba Fett movie comes in and everybody goes kind of scratches their head because again, this is a character there's not a whole lot known about, so why should we care about his origin story kind of thing?
Yeah, especially considering that we already have his origin story in the main numbered prequel, so it's a case of, so we know he's a clone. Why should we care about what happens to this bounty hunter that ends up dying in the Sarlacc pit?
But you don't understand, Rodney. He not only is a clone, he's a clone emo kid. He's got issues, okay?
Again, like I said last time we covered this, honestly, they should probably look towards events that people would want to know about rather than trying to focus on characters. Yeah,
events more than characters.
But yeah, because I got what I wanted with Rogue One was a case of, okay, the mission to get the Death Star plans. That was something I was interested in. So honestly, the next anthology thing they should do is, okay, what about the Bothan spies that got the plans for the second Death Star? Who are the Bothans? What kind of planet what kind of planet do they come from? Are they all spies or do they just go into spy? It's kind of a case of, hey, there's something worth exploring that you can probably get some good material out of.
Well, and what's also interesting is that even though, yes, the expanded universe is pretty much removed, we now have weird things now included because of movies like Solo. I mean, they just barely, for those who don't know the Solo reveal, it pretty much made Rebels and Clone Wars canon. Okay. So at that point, with what Dave Filoni did, you now have a ton of other events and stories to be able to tell that would be just as interesting. One in particular that I've seen a lot of sites actually craving for since Rebels is canon now is the development of the TIE Defender, which would include everybody's favorite Chiss Admiral, Grand Admiral Thrawn. And so many people want an actual adaptation of Thrawn, like a live action adaptation of Thrawn. I think that would still be very successful. But I agree with you, Romney. It needs to be more on events. Characters are eventually going to run out of stories that people want to hear. But events, like prominent events that we keep on hearing about, that's where the money is. Because I would love to see the Return of the Jedi story about the Bothan spies and how they acquired the second Death Star's plans. Yeah, and then on top of that, the development of the TIE Defender is another amazing one.
Yeah, because that was the key appeal. A lot of people forget before what we got with Disney's buyout, that was the whole appeal of Shadows of the Empire, because it took a gap of the canon and basically went like, okay, what happened after the events of Return of the Jedi, but before Luke's mission to rescue Han on Tatooine? What happened in that gap? I mean, we already had questions of, okay, how did Luke make his own lightsaber after losing the lightsaber after his battle with Vader? What happened with all these other factions that are involved? It's a case of, hey, it took a chunk of time that hadn't been filled and filled it, and that's what they need to do. Is they need to look at the gaps and just events tied to the films and think, okay, there's a story here.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So there's tons more potential in being able to tell about events in particular, not necessarily the characters. Like I'll admit the Solo movie made me want to see a character movie based off of, oh crap, what's his name? The mentor for Han. Alex, do you remember it?
Sure,
Woody Harrelson's character.
I actually forgot it myself.
Yeah, Woody Harrelson's character, just given the claims that they made about his character, I would love to see what they actually did with him. But more because I want to see the other roles, like the people he killed, being cast. And therefore we have them for live action. Like I said, the development of the TIE Defender would be another amazing one to be able to put onto film. Also, the development of the X-Wing Starfighter would be another interesting one, because if you follow expanded universe lore, that was a pretty dark time until the X-Wing actually got developed. It would actually be really cool to see the rebellion step into their own and be able to start fighting back.
Yeah, that even raises another possibility that they could do, because a lot of people forget that Star Wars, the original trilogy, was influenced by a lot of the works of Akira Kurosawa. So maybe, okay, let's maybe take some Kurosawa films and try to transplant them into the Star Wars universe. I mean, a good example, take a look at the film Yojimbo, which is literally about a samurai who manipulates a battle between two clans for his own gains. And it's a case of, hey, you could literally set that in the Star Wars universe. Maybe have someone like maybe a Jedi who was in hiding after Order 66 manipulating a battle between the Rebellion and the Empire
or it doesn't even need to be a Jedi character. Again, Clone Wars and Rebels are canon. I can already think of one character who can fulfill that Yojimbo role, and that would be Hondo Onaka. And a lot of people love Hondo Onaka. So at that point, having a movie based on him and how he was able to rise to power, lose all of it, and then regain some of it.
Yeah, but point being is that there are ways they can do about it if they try to get away from basically pushing the nostalgia button. If they get away from, hey, let's take something super familiar and try to expand on that and just think, okay, well, we've got this universe. Maybe instead of trying to tie it directly to the conflict of the Rebellion and the Empire or the First Order and the Resistance, let's just maybe say, okay, here's something cool that happened on this planet around this sort of time, maybe, and go.
And I'll even be honest, like, even if you wanted to do a film that's kind of a prequel to Force Awakens that goes into the events after Return of the Jedi for Luke, I'd be interested in that. Do I think you're going to get Mark Hamill for it? No, we're probably going to get butt-a-face Luke Skywalker, and I'm okay with it. But that's still a cool story that I would like to see fleshed out.
I mean, alternately, the movie writes itself, Seven Samurai, but with Jedi. Right? You literally just have a planet or even just an area on a planet that's like, hey, we're getting attacked by bandits, or hey, this battle between the Rebellion and Empire is wrecking our stuff. We need a way to defend ourselves. And just like, oh, well, go to this planet, see if you can hire some older Jedi or something. It's a case of, hey, literally just take Seven Samurai, set it in the Star Wars universe, and bam, you have a movie.
Yeah, pretty much. Final thoughts on this one, because we're running out of time on it. But yeah, I think that this is the problem that we have, is like we're okay if you want to discontinue the movies that you have going right now to focus on Episode 9. We're okay with that. Just don't do the whole back and forth. Just come out and actually say it, kind of thing. So, final thoughts on this one, Alex?
I don't think I have any more thoughts.
Okay. All right. So, moving on into the next story, and this one is also very weird because it involves John Travolta's latest movie, Gotti. And so to bring people up to speed, we covered this, I think, earlier in the year. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alex. We covered the Black Panther campaign, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we did. That was like a campaign to take down Rotten Tomatoes score or something.
No, to overall lower the audience score of Black Panther.
Right.
But also the same thing happened with Last Jedi. So we already have a couple of scandals on Rotten Tomatoes where that has happened. In the case of John Travolta's movie Gotti, they actually tried to do the opposite and game the system to raise the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes to their favor. Because here's the bottom line, and I like this quote so much that I'm going to use it. It's literally from the Gotti Films Twitter. Audiences loved Gotti, but critics don't want to see it. The question is why? Trust the people and see it for yourself. Now, up until this point, Rotten Tomatoes' audience score for Gotti wasn't entirely there. The critic scores were bigger on the matter. And so they actually tried to launch a little bit of a movement to raise the audience score of Gotti to get people to go and see it more. And obviously this has sparked a little bit of debate as to, since Rotten Tomatoes responded to the Black Panther and Last Jedi campaigns by seeing like all the fake accounts trying to make bad reviews for those movies and got rid of those reviews, a lot of people are wondering whether or not Rotten Tomatoes would get involved here. And to my knowledge, currently Rotten Tomatoes is not involved just yet. But there is a lot of talk that they actually will get involved on this one because they don't want this system working out the opposite way, where people overly inflate their score so they can get more people to see them. And therefore, these bad films, as the critics see it, get more success, and therefore we get more bad movies, kind of thing. But it's a tough situation because, again, right now the critic scores for Gotti are not that good. The audience score right now is a respectable 74% of the reviews that they have.
Well, that's of this article. I just checked it right now. It's actually down to 59%.
So it looks like Rotten Tomatoes has already gotten involved.
Yeah.
So they probably have taken care of some of those fake accounts. We've dealt with the negative on this one. What are you guys' thoughts on the opposite in this case? Like where people try to artificially inflate their movies audience score because they know that Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes are used so actively they want to make sure that people go and see their movies. Is this necessarily in the right or in the wrong?
Well, of course it's in the wrong, because you're manipulating and you're kind of tricking your audiences by artificially and manipulating an online aggregate score. It's just, yeah, it strikes as, it smacks of shadiness, and it's only going to hurt your product in the end, because it's like, oh, that's
especially when the aggregate sites get involved and start removing a lot of the crap you just pulled.
Yeah, then you're going to see the score tank. So even if, and when people find out, well, then people aren't going to go trust you and go see it, because then they're like, oh, you're clearly trying to manipulate me into spending my money to go see your product that probably isn't very good because you had to artificially inflate your scores.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't like the idea of artificially inflating or deflating a score. I think that people should see a movie based off of its merits. And it's not like I don't understand that concept. I have a lot of friends who have very little money to work a basic 9-to-5 job, kind of like a lot of us do. And they rely on those scores to see whether or not they're going to be walking into a turd. Because they, given how much we actually pay for movie tickets these days, you don't want to be walking into a turd. And in some cases, a lot of people just kind of go to the movies that only they are interested in. And therefore, a lot of experimentation isn't happening. So I tend to be on Alex's side. I don't think this is a good thing for either side. And I'm glad that Rotten Tomatoes stepped in, and I think Metacritic will step in as well. But it is definitely something now that we have to worry about when movies like this come out, is whether or not the scores now are inflated or deflated because of whatever campaign. Romney, what's your take on it?
Well, I'm looking at some of the tweets and the arguments around the tweet, and it's just making me sad that it's hard to tell which ones are actually real people and which ones are basically fake accounts on Twitter staging these fights. And yeah, it's pretty messed up that, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that people are trying to game the system and think, oh, hey, if we manipulate the audience's scores, it'll get more people to see it. Honestly, it's just going to make people even less likely and just less wary of your film, because of the case of, okay, the fact that you had to artificially manipulate these scores to get people to see your movie doesn't really show that you have a lot of confidence in your own film. Just saying.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the way that I look at this, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on it, is here's how the consumer looks at it when campaigns like this start happening. Is they don't want to be involved in the controversy because, again, the ticket prices are absurd right now. So at that point, they probably just sit there and go, well, I was kind of interested in seeing Black Panther, but I'm so sick and tired of the controversy, I won't go see it. Or I'm a big fan of John Travolta, but now because of the controversy surrounding this new film that he's doing, I'm not going to go see it because I don't want to take the risk. And therefore, they're going to stop relying on these sites. And instead of, taking the chance, they're just going to sit there and go, okay, I'm only going to go see this movie, this movie, this movie, and this movie because they're properties that I like, and therefore I have faith in them.
Yeah, like properties that I like are from directors or studios that I can trust, or having actors who have better brand control. Because, well, Travolta hasn't been the smartest with maintaining his brand as an actor, as opposed to, say, actors like Tom Cruise or Denzel Washington, who always are in the same kind of movies because they know their strengths and weaknesses as performers. And so, honestly, it's sneaky. It doesn't surprise me that it's happening, but it's just a case, what did they expect was going to happen by doing this? They knew that it was very much a case of, you had to know you were going to get caught. You had to know that this was going to be revealed. People aren't stupid.
Well, the other thing too is, back to the point that I was creating, is that if people don't think that this actually does hurt the movie industry, yes, it does, because people aren't experimenting. Like they see these trailers, they go, oh, that looks really, really, really good. I just don't know if I want to pay $15 a seat for it, kind of thing. And that's where the problem kind of lies. And that's where that actually hurts Hollywood, that hurts the movie industry, because people are not experimenting on those films that they don't have a whole lot of faith in.
Yeah, plus it's another issue where mid-range films are kind of slowly being edged out of the box office because, like you said, with expensive ticket sales, people who are going to the movies and are going to put down that investment are probably going to put that investment towards the spectacle films or the major big blockbuster genre films, not so much for a film about John Gotti. I mean, Spielberg, I mean, much as I hate to say this, Spielberg was right in this regard, where we may very well hit an age where people will pay $20 to see Iron Man, but may only want to pay $7 to see Lincoln.
Yeah, that's kind of a sad statement. Is like Lincoln would be the experimental effort there to see whether or not it was a good one. Whereas if you're an Iron Man fan, Iron Man's a guarantee. Like, you know it's going to be good.
Yeah, especially when you consider
that aside from the first one, 2 and 3 aren't that good.
Well, yeah, and especially when you consider that these films are usually made as prestige pictures, so they're not really made to make box office returns. They're made for the awards crowd. But even then, it's a case of they got to make their money back somehow, and especially when you consider the already limited release of Gotti, it's very much a case of they probably should have just wrote out the limited release thing, see if it was worth it expanding to other screens, and if not, just basically put it on streaming services like everyone else.
Oh crap, Romney, you just made an argument for me. It's like, wow, this hurts the events or the award season, like where we might actually see the Oscars and all of those award shows change from being the pat myself on the back awards to actually acknowledging true effort. Yeah, that's not happening.
That's never
mind. I've already abolished the argument in my head.
Yeah, again,
it's never happening.
Yeah, because the awards, it's not about what you show, it's literally about who you blow. I mean, there's no other way to say it. It doesn't matter about the quality of the film. It's a matter of who's...
Do I bleep that?
I mean, am I wrong? Am I wrong?
No. The sad reality is no, you're not. But it's like, do I bleep that? Do we have? Are we talking about Harvey Weinstein again?
Honestly, that's how it works with award shows. It's basically you spend a bunch of money. You try to basically you try to woo the people who are on the voting committees, and so yeah, that's how it is. Doesn't matter how good your film is, if you don't play the game, no one's gonna give it any attention.
Pretty much. Final thoughts, Alex, on this one. Do you think this is going to be overall a good or a bad thing for the movie industry?
I'm with you. It's only gonna just hurt things in the long run, and we've already gotten to this point where the art house films, the mid-range films, and the more serious films in terms of theaters have lost out to the blockbusters. And well, I mean, thank God for platforms like Netflix. So at least it's not all doom and gloom, because movies like Lincoln can at least have a new home on platforms like Netflix where people will watch them.
Yeah, pretty much. I will admit that like a lot of the documentaries that I watch are on Netflix, and a lot of the biopics that I watch, like that I wasn't too trusting in the theater, I watch on Netflix when they make their way there.
I mean, when you especially consider the kind of projects that Netflix is financing, I mean, you would never get a major television network to air Devilman Crybaby. Even in Japan, they would never air it. But Netflix is like, oh, hey, this is something that no other venue will take. Give it to us. We'll do it. We don't care if it's...
I mean, the effort that I want to bring up to a lot of people, because here's the thing: mainstream TV couldn't make Castlevania work. It took Netflix to get that off the ground.
Not even mainstream TV, not even mainstream Hollywood. When you consider how long a Castlevania movie was in development,
it went from mainstream TV, mainstream film, cable TV, independent film. Nobody could get it done.
Yeah, and they went through Paul W.S. Anderson, it went through James Wan, it went through Sidney White, it went through so many different directors and producers. What was the one that got it off the ground? Netflix and Fred Siebert.
Yeah, so that already tells you something.
Yeah, and Adi Shankar before people start throwing rocks at me. Yes, he was also a major proponent.
Yes, he was. Moving on into our last story, which is kind of back into the Star Wars license, but in a very weird way. In fact, I still don't know if I necessarily trust all of the stories that I've read on this one. It still feels like a joke article to me, but I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there and let you guys be the judge. Apparently there is a fan campaign right now from a team of producers to, quote, remake The Last Jedi. Okay, so we've already kind of covered this in the Star Wars stuff we talked about earlier. A lot of people have a very 50-50 viewpoint. In fact, in a lot of cases, it's kind of shifted to about 60-40, 70-30 negative towards The Last Jedi, and feel like a lot of the assets that we've complained about are what bring the film down. So, a movement on Twitter called Remake The Last Jedi has made an announcement. Our team of producers is offering to cover the budget for a remake of The Last Jedi in order to save Star Wars. Share this and spread the word to let Disney and is that supposed to be Robert?
Yeah, Bob Iger.
Bob Iger, yeah. No, you want this. This isn't a joke. We're ready to have the conversation now. And so there's a legit campaign to provide Disney an opportunity to, quote, course correct the Star Wars franchise.
Okay,
Do you see now why I think this is a joke article?
This sounds a bit more like a potential phishing scam, considering they do say pledge.
I honestly thought when you put this story up, this was going to be a change.org petition. I'm just going to be honest.
We've had those petitions. I think I brought them before. So, but like I said, it sounds a bit like a potential phishing scam or something, because I think they say please send. They don't ask for like outright all your personal information, but they do ask for like your email. So either they're just looking to, sign you up for their Jelly of the Month club or something here. But assuming this was like legit, I want to know who this team of phantom producers are, and I can contact them, because I want forget Star Wars.
Because all we know about this movement is that it is a movement from fans of Star Wars. Okay. Yes. We don't have a leader of the movement or anything like that. We don't have like representatives of it. It's just a movement by the fans to remake The Last Jedi.
By some team, quote unquote, team of producers.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, who are these phantom producers? And how do I get them to fund one of my movies? Because I'd love them if they did.
Romney might smack me, but I have to go to the Kojima route. Are they the Patriots? The Lale Lule Lo? They might as well be.
Nah, they want to be, though.
They really do.
Just kind of going through some of these other tweets from other people who've reacted to this.
The one in particular I want to grab here is that we actually have gotten a response from the director of The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson, where he actually does say, and I quote, please, 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 please actually happen. Please, 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 please. And a dozen pray emojis. That's a startling statement from the director. I mean, granted, he's a director. He probably wouldn't inspire creativity and wanted to see what these guys would do. But that's still a very strong statement that I actually wonder if Kathleen and Disney eventually got mad at him for.
I'm pretty sure he's being facetious.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's sarcastic, especially considering I saw that response, and then I saw Mark Hamill's response, which kind of just showed a screen grab of the tweet and basically a screen grab of a t-shirt saying, "I don't care. How about you?"
Yeah, I saw that too.
That's the other question that has to come up here, is that the bottom line is you want to remake The Last Jedi. That's fine. Are you really thinking that you're going to get Mark again? Mark is done as far as he is concerned. He does not have to come back and play Luke, at least as far as we know.
Yeah.
He does not have to come back and play Luke. And considering that this is a fan campaign, those take years. So basically, by the time you actually get this thing off the ground, he is going to be a lot grayer than he is now.
Yeah, and honestly, looking at it, it's just a case where, like, even looking at a lot of the industry professionals, that was actually one of the common questions people kept asking of, okay, are you going to bring back all the actors that you've chased off social media?
Yeah, pretty much. And we even got a couple of other responses, and Alex, you wanted to get into them, but we have responses from Chuck Wendig and even Seth Rogen, of all people. Do you want to take the Seth Rogen tweets, Alex?
Sure, if you want to take Chuck.
I'll take Chuck, and the tweets that we have on the article is basically, fourth question, seriously, what the hell? Okay, fifth question. You now have over $6 million pledged, but on June 15th, you ran a poll which got 15 people. Are those 15 people giving you around $400,000 each? And if you could introduce me to these people, I could use some cash. I'm a little tight.
Yeah, I want to know who these 15 people are, because I want them to fund my movie.
That's the surprising thing, is like, this is a lot of money and only 15 people responded to your damn poll? Yeah, that's a lot of money to cover, people. That's a lot. So yeah, and then Seth Rogen replied,
Seth Rogen, yo, I'm very confused as to what your goal is here. You literally want to spend $200 million remaking The Last Jedi, and someone is giving you that money. I don't get it. Continuing, how did you get investors without a script or stars or director or legal ability to make this movie? Those have been important elements in the past.
And then he also asks another major question on this one is someone actually investing money in this? Because here's the thing. This is a lot of money, and technically a lot of people could go, bullcrap. You don't have that kind of money. We want proof that you have that kind of money. And nothing could happen. That's why a lot of people are literally looking at this and going, 15 people? Really? That's a lot of money that has to get spread amongst 15 people each. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So how does that work? And now, like, as of the article, the campaign says it's raised $13 million through pledges. Okay, so now we're getting to a point of like of the 15 people on Twitter, literally each one of them is giving $1 million.
And by doing what exactly? I mean, that's what we still don't know, because it's like, they're not like linking to Kickstarter or Indiegogo platforms. Like, they might have some other crowdfunding but it's
it's all literally the website. Even their Twitter account is gone. I literally tried to pull up their tweets, but guess what spawned in the wake of it? You literally have remake The Last Jedi remake, remake the remake of the remake, remake the remake of The Last Jedi remake.
Oh my god.
Jeez, I thought things got complicated on Twitter when the Resident Evil remake happened.
Like that amount of money between like allegedly like 15 people or 15 producers. It's like you can look at like any like small time indie film and you'll probably get like a decent sized list of producers from people who gave a small amount of money here and there, but it's probably not going to add up to the budget of a Star Wars movie.
No, it's really not. I mean, Alex, you might have to do some footwork on this one. How much was the budget of The Last Jedi? I can't remember. I know it was probably in the billions.
Yeah, it was at the very least in the hundreds of millions at the very least.
It was a lot.
I mean, honestly.
Okay, I gotta read this to you guys. So a friend of mine on Twitter basically says, we will find out later that out of the shadows, one man will step out in a black robe, and it was George Lucas the entire time.
Darth Lucas, he strikes again.
Exactly. Now he gets to remake The Last Jedi on his terms, which means more Jar Jar!
Budget for Last Jedi estimated 200 to 250 million.
200. So yeah, they're maybe a fraction of the way there. 13 million currently via pledges. You're a fraction of the way there. I don't see you getting all the way to the 250 mil. And
honestly, the funniest of the parody accounts I'm seeing here, literally, it's like the remake of the remake of The Last Jedi, and literally their bio says our budget is $69.
Nice. You are well on your way, my friend. All you got to do is just go to Kickstarter and say you want to make a chicken salad, and you will be able to make at least $2 million off of that. Jiminy Christmas. So, the other question that I have here is, I don't know if you guys saw these, but for the sake of experimentation, after we did our Last Jedi review, I watched one of them. It's technically been remade. Because if you watch some of the edited video, like where a guy basically edited and took out all of the stuff that people were irritated with The Last Jedi, which is basically all of the Finn parts, and recreated it into a much more cohesive story, one that fulfills a lot more about the Jedi lore, it's a lot better. So at this point, I'm like, well, technically it's been remade. It's just they took all the crap out. I mean, am I the only one that's watched one of these?
I haven't watched any.
Yeah. Okay. The reason I haven't watched any is mainly because that would mean effectively having to pirate the film, and I've already had CenturyLink nearly cut off my internet service because of one snafu. I do not want to deal with another. Yeah,
I just went on an experience because it was one of those freak deals where it was on YouTube for like 10 minutes, and I actually went, okay, let's actually see what they did there. And I'm not saying I watched the entire thing start to finish, but I skipped here and there, but I'm like, yeah, this actually is a lot more cohesive because it's focusing on one story.
Yeah. Honestly, I prefer the 2-second version that was re-edited that was circulating Twitter for a while. Because honestly, well, it's the one where they basically took the clip where Leia is out in space, and then they spliced it with the scene where Holdo literally light speeds through the fleet, and then just cut those two scenes together. I'm just like, okay, if that was The Last Jedi, if that was the new canon, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, I've seen that edit too, where not in 2 seconds, but like in 10 seconds, where like Leia's the video I found was like Leia's vengeance on The Last Jedi, and it was that she did that. I'm like, you know what? That would be a lot better.
Yeah, it may not make a bunch of sense and would leave a whole bunch of plot holes, but hey, I mean, one, it's a good way for Leia to go out as a character, and two, that would just, I mean, the Force is already broken. The Skywalker lineage is already broken. May as well just you know what? We're just gonna break everything. Yeah,
this is why in a lot of cases, I mean, you know, we just barely got done talking about like kind of refueling our efforts towards episode 9. I'm not, because here's the thing. Again, I have kind of a 50-50 love-hate relationship with The Last Jedi. All the stuff that I liked. All the stuff that I didn't like. I can see a lot of people's hatreds towards it, but now I just kind of don't even have a whole lot of faith in episode 9. Like, can JJ actually save this? I don't even have a whole lot of faith on it.
Well, in my case, I kind of have a little bit of faith, just given that, again, given what we've already had to deal with the behind-the-scenes drama, at the very least, I mean, I was wary when the announcement of JJ taking over episode 9 came out, where I thought, oh, it's going to be like Lucas doing Return of the Jedi, where it's on his turn. Where here I'm just like, well, I guess it's kind of fitting when you consider it. This will be the end of the trilogy, wrapping up the story of the original characters, so it's oddly kind of fits. And honestly, given just how much of a deviation we got when Rian Johnson did The Last Jedi, it's a case of, okay, well, that actually, it's kind of like a fun improv challenge. Like, okay, well, let's see what JJ does now that literally the script has been flipped.
Yeah, especially when you found out later, like there was an original script for episode 8 that JJ had put to paper, and Ryan didn't follow any of it. Like, I think maybe a few things made their way in there, but not everything. Like, it pretty much got gutted. So at that point, like, the fact that JJ kind of gets to end this trilogy on his terms, that is helpful, but it still makes me worry. Like, what can you do? I hate to even say this, but to me, like, Finn is a wasted character at this point, because I don't even think a final confrontation with him and Phasma is going to keep my interest in episode 9. I'm only going to be interested in the Jedi-esque story, which is sad, because one of the things I love about the original trilogy is the plight of the rebels kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
and honestly, Lindsay Ellis kind of made a video kind of discussing the main problem with the new trilogy, and that's the fact that the First Order doesn't really have a clear goal or a clear ideology here. I mean, the Empire didn't really have an ideology, but that's because they were the dominant power. They were in control. They didn't need it. But here, we're dealing with a universe where the Empire has fallen, and yet we're not given really any idea of what allowed the First Order to rise to prominence or what they're actually fighting for. And that's kind of the main problem here, is that we have no reason to get invested in the core conflict of the trilogy because they haven't given us that reason. Like, where did they come from? And why are they suddenly a threat? Why is it that it's the Resistance fighting the First Order instead of, the New Republic? Why
the New Republic? I mean, we know that now. Like, the New Republic got wiped out, but at the same time, it's like, why are we hearing about a Resistance when we fought so hard to restore the Republic?
Yeah, honestly, the old expanded universe handled this better, where it's a case of, okay, you have the New Republic, and then you have the Imperial Remnant. If they kind of went that route of, okay, they're basically remnants of the Empire.
I'm glad you brought that up, because another video that comes to my mind, I haven't seen Lindsay Ellis's video on it, but another video that I did see on the matter is that technically you didn't need to basically the argument that this guy was giving was you didn't need to get rid of the expanded universe, because you could technically justify the First Order as being canon within it. Because the way the Imperial Remnant worked is that it was just a bunch of scattered, leaderless admirals who were all vying to fill the power vacuum. And so at that point, you could have just said the First Order was yet another faction within the Imperial Remnant, and nobody would have cared. That's the sad reality, is like the Remnant in those games and in that expanded universe isn't a threat, because they are so scattered and divided and fighting amongst each other that they're not even a threat to your protagonists.
Yeah, and that's kind of the main problem here, and hopefully JJ will at least bring it to a conclusion that will basically at least end the story in a satisfying way, considering that this will be the end of the story with any ties to the original trilogy. And so hopefully Abrams will be able to bring it into focus. I'm more optimistic, mainly just because, well, JJ tends to be at his best when he's having to having to flip things up and adapt. When you look at what they had to do with Star Trek Beyond, which, yeah, he didn't direct, but it's a case of, okay, well, let's basically do something new and different that's still...
Yeah, he didn't direct it, but the way I understand it, he consulted. So at that point, like, a lot of his vision was still adhered to in Beyond. And Beyond was a good movie.
Yeah, and so honestly, I mean, I'm optimistic, but I'm of the opinion of I'm going to watch episode 9, but after that, I'm pretty much done with Star Wars because the story that I'm following will be done, and I won't have any reason to really care. And honestly, to kind of get back on point with this whole remaking The Last Jedi, I mean, this is definitely a scam. The Twitter accounts disappeared.
Yeah.
You're literally only pledging money to a website, and there's no actual person to contact. It's a scam.
This is taking advantage, in my opinion. Just it feels like a joke. It feels like a bunch of hackers taking advantage of people who are pissed off at the movie and wanting a proper treatment, kind of thing. And guys, I hate to be the dude, but this is officially out there. Last Jedi is finalized. It's there. It's in canon. There's not really a whole lot that can be done there. My advice to you is that the sooner you kind of get over that, the better things are going to be, and therefore your expectations are going to be lower when episode 9 rolls around.
Yeah. And honestly, if you do really want a remake of The Last Jedi, don't expect it to be official. I mean, honestly, the way I would see it, okay, just get a couple of friends together, do a fan remake, like a purposefully low budget, just be purposely cheap about it. Almost, I mean, again, I like how some of the Twitter accounts that are parodying this whole thing are just like, oh, our budget's only $69. Or one person's like, oh yeah, I'm going to remake it with action figures. Honestly, if they do it, if people decide to do
Lego people want it, or like the Lego YouTubers want to do it, let them do it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you do it in that route where it's like, oh, it's a fan remake, but done purposefully low budget, tongue in cheek, these are just a bunch of friends in their garage, then that I'd be open to. It's a case of, okay, yeah, because it's just people having fun.
And before people jump down our throats here, like, I mean, here's the bottom line. You know, we brought up Shenmue 3 earlier on in the podcast. Shenmue 3 was dead as far as a lot of people were concerned, and the only thing that we had to rely on was a bunch of fans that actually got together and put together a very shoddily filmed movie, just kind of saying, like, this is where Shenmue 3 is going to go. And I'm not saying that it's bad. I mean, there actually are a lot of really great ideas from some of these low-quality filmmakers because they don't have the Hollywood studios backing them. But there were actually a lot of really good ideas just kind of patterned in to that concept. The same thing could happen here with The Last Jedi. It really could.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you look at Belated Media's discussions of like, okay, what if he was a script doctor at Fox when they were doing the prequel trilogy, and kind of his idea of how he would do the prequel trilogy, getting stuff like that, that's good discussion material. That's good video content material. It's a case of, hey, if you want to discuss how you would do things differently, by all means. If you want to do it in a very cheap, low-budget way, by all means. But the whole remake The Last Jedi with millions and millions of dollars, yeah, that's a scam.
Yeah. Alex, you get the final thoughts on this one. I mean, are you kind of in the same camp?
Yeah, obviously I agree. It's not something like this wouldn't happen. Disney is not going to care. Disney's not going to pay attention. They've made their money as far as they know. Their checks are cut and dry, and they are ready to move on. And episode 9 will be the end.
Not just even Disney's done. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, this remake happens. I got to be honest here. I don't think you get Mark Hamill. I think Mark's done. I think Mark did what he was going to do, and he was okay with what came out, and he's done. He's washed his hands of it, kind of like with Han and Force Awakens.
Yeah, there's really nothing you can do because I don't think you'll get. You're right. You probably won't get Mark Hamill back. And,
you're not going to get Mark. You can't. You obviously can't get Carrie Fisher. Harrison. Like, if you, let's just say for the sake of argument, you wanted to bring Harrison back, he's not going to come back. These guys are done. They've been done for years with these characters, kind of thing. They've made their bed with them. So even if you got the big budget, there's no guarantee you'd get Mark Hamill to come in.
Yeah,
that's the reality. And with that, let's just go ahead and wrap. So that is the last story that we have tonight. So we'll go ahead and wrap things up for the evening. First of all, thank you guys so much for watching and listening to the podcast. We really do appreciate it. And thank you so much to my panelists for showing up and giving the opinions that they have. And if people want to be able to reach out to the panelists and ask for their opinions on these stories and many, 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 many others, as well as check out their content, Stephen Romney, how do they do that with you?
Well, you can find me under my handle, Studio Ghost Utah. That is my handle both on YouTube and on Facebook. At least I plan on uploading to both. I haven't done so in a while because, well, things happen. And I am also most recently on Instagram under the username Romney Does Art. So if you want to look at some of the artwork that I do on Instagram and you're bored, you can find me there. And I am also on Twitter at Romney Reviews, which is probably the best way to ask me questions or send me anything directly. Seriously, people, stop sending it to Adam. And as for this
especially
week,
Mountain Dew ice stuff, that's just not happening, people.
Yeah, and so as for this week's Romney's recommendation, which I feel is quite appropriate, given how riled up we've all become, I'm going to recommend a book. How about that? We're back to Romney's Reading Club.
Yay!
And the book I'm recommending this week is The Art of Peace by Morihei Ueshiba. Now, if a lot of people know, I'm a martial artist, and I'm also working on a novel involving the martial arts. And some of you who are martial artists may recognize the name of Morihei Ueshiba as the founder of the Japanese martial art Aikido. Now, I'm not going to get into the practicality of Aikido because that's a whole separate topic, but the book, The Art of Peace, is literally a collection of the core philosophy of Aikido. So this is less about the actual techniques and more about the philosophy of the martial art of defeating your opponent in a non-violent way, conducting yourself as a non-violent person. And it's actually a pretty breezy read because, well, each page literally only has like a paragraph, which is more akin to basically reading a haiku. And it's also really, really cheap. But if you're interested in it, looking at the philosophy of Aikido, regardless of what opinions you may have about the way the martial art itself is taught, both in the United States and in Japan, because let's face it, to quote Joe Rogan, there's a lot of fuckery going on.
Yes.
It's a case of, if you want to look at the philosophy from the man himself, this is a good place to look at it. It is titled The Art of Peace by Morihei Ueshiba, translated and edited by John Stevens, a prominent Aikidoka, available from Shambhala Press. The price I paid for it was like $9. That is how cheap it is. So that's this week's Romney's recommendation, The Art of Peace by Morihei Ueshiba.
All right. And Alex, the Shadow Blazer, if people want to get a hold of your content or reach out to you, how do they do that?
You can find me on YouTube. Shadow Blizzard 3000 is my channel, and that's where I produce anime-related content and occasional Let's Plays. And, of course, to always be up to date on when a new video goes out, or to talk to me, contact me personally, just follow me on Twitter at AlexJShort.
All right. And if people want to reach out to me, the best way to do so is on Twitter at Drac2326. But while you're here, check out all of the content that I do provide on YouTube. I do Let's Play content of a number of games right now. I do a Let's Play of World of Warcraft, as well as Prince of Persia Sands of Time, and Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction. So you guys have plenty of stuff to look into, as well as Final Fantasy VII. And then also you can look into all of the other stuff like game reviews and everything like that that I do on a less regular basis. And in fact, a lot of reviews are coming soon, so stay tuned. If you want to be able to support the podcast, though, the first thing that we ask that you do to support it is support the RSS feed. Either go to geekyweek.podomatic.com and sign up there, or you can go to iTunes or Google Play for Android users and subscribe to the podcast there. And obviously give us a review, give us a like, any feedback that you want to give us. We always do appreciate that, and we appreciate your support there. If you want to support us on social media, you can do so either on Twitter or on Facebook under the exact same name, Geeky NRO. And for both of those, you'll get up-to-the-minute information when we're going live, the stories we might be talking about, even some polls of like stuff you guys would like to see in the future. We would love to be able to get you guys' feedback on that. And of course, if you guys want to submit stories or submit feedback to the podcast, not only can you do the reviews via iTunes and whatnot, you can also leave them at geekyweek@gmail.com. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us this evening. Thank you guys so much for your love, your continued love, patience, and support. I know the RSS feed actually needs a little bit of work, but don't worry about that because that's coming very, very soon. And I'm looking forward to being able to bring all of that to you. And yeah, thanks once again for all the love and the patience, the support, and all the stuff that you guys give us. And for me, for Alex, and for Romney, we'll see you guys next week for even more geek news, reviews, and opinions. There we go.